Melissa?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of America, with the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gents. And welcome to the first, actually it's the second, but for you folks, it's the first meeting of 2025. So we need a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First agenda item is the continued public hearing in the matter of the establishment of the Town of Goshen Ambulance District in the Town of Goshen, County of Orange, State of New York. We're continuing this basically, I guess, on because we're waiting for word from the village board as far as how they're going to act. But I believe there are a few people here tonight from the ambulance corps, and maybe you want to give an update, if there is any update, as far as what's happening with the potential district. Just state your name.
Sure, my name is Ernie Stomach. I'm the president of Goshen Ambulance Corps. Pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for your support. We are indeed waiting for the village to hear us. We're going to see them Monday evening, present what the ambulance district is all about. We're very hopeful that they will kind of make a motion or make some movement towards supporting that at that point. We did meet with them about 3 weeks ago and went through all the fundamentals of the why, and hopefully we'll have some result. Additionally, we have been approved by the Hudson Valley Regional EMS Council to start the procedure moving towards an ALS or paramedic service. So that's kind of one of the many hoops to jump through. But that's a big deal for us to get that approved. We got to go through all the fitness and competencies and all, make sure all that stuff is in place. We've had some personnel changes for the better. We brought on a paramedic instructor on our group, which is a big plus for us, so we'll have those classes in-house. So just getting all of you lined up, moving forward, and hopefully next time we talk, we will be in that. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said there's going to be a meeting with the village?
Yes, sir.
And when will that be?
This coming Monday at 7 o'clock
And where will that be?
at the village hall.
And is it open to the public?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Guys, what will the relationship between the town and the ambulance corps be? Are you an independent corporation? Will you have your own board? Are we, the town, just gonna be funders? Or if there's medical malpractice, who's gonna run, who's gonna be like the COO?
That's, yeah, good question. I am the president and the CEO of the organization. It's a private organization, nonprofit. We contract to the town at this point to provide ambulance service. And instead of contracting, that will be funded by taxes.
So that's what it's gonna be. It'll be a contractual relationship. The board will have no say running any, who the officers are, or who the executives are, or anything like that.
That's correct. However, we will report to the board all of our activities because that funding comes from your board. So we will have full transparency as to how it's spent, where it goes, who runs the place, and how it's spent.
Okay. Now, is there an actual contract, like this contract was 95, 96, or was, let's say, 25, 26, and it expires? Or is it open-ended?
I'm not sure how that works.
It's been a while since I looked at that, but I'll give you what I remember. The ambulance corps, and this is statewide, this is not just Goshen, this is statewide. Every year they have to present a budget to the town of Goshen. And then the town of Goshen has to approve that budget. So let's say, for instance, they said they were going to purchase 3 ambulances. And the town might say back, well, it doesn't seem like you need 3 ambulances. You have 3 already, and I understand one is getting old, so, you know, we're allocating one ambulance for you for 2026 or whatever. But then as far as what Ernie just said, when you, after that is approved, then their board of directors, your chief, their lieutenants run the show for that particular year. I have heard of ambulance corps getting 2- and 3-year contracts, you know, for that period of time. Actually, most of them, I think I've heard, really they're 1 year. They have to go to the board every year and present what they think they need for that, and then the board has to approve it.
What typically happens in municipal organizations is if the boss of the police department or the fire department doesn't like what the politicians do, then they go out to the newspapers and, like you were just saying, you need, the ambulance says you need 3 ambulances, you say, no, you need 1. Then somebody dies, you know? Now we're gonna have a guy in the paper, or, I think the 1-year contract does away with that.
As I said, I think most that I know of, and I'm really not a person who knows all the ins and outs of that, but most of them, because hearing, when I was president for all those years, I'd be hearing the people going every year to the town board and presenting their budget. But the other thing that you have to understand too is the amount of money that the ambulance corps is going to get is, I won't say minimal, because it clearly isn't minimal, but there's 2 other factors that are, the biggest factor is the reimbursements from the insurance companies. This year, the ambulance corps will probably be receiving probably 1.1 million in reimbursements for the work that we do with these people. Of course, there's a lot of dead-end streets. People don't have insurance, can't get blood from a stone, so you don't collect on every single one, but we collect on an awful lot. And then, of course, the fund drive. Fund drive, we do that, and then the proposal that we have now before us is, and this was when I was still involved, it was around 1.5 million. And we were asking for $450,000 from if we created the district, $450,000 would be generated from the tax district. The rest of the 1.5 is from the other sources that I just mentioned. So,
to add to that too, there's never a guarantee, you know. When you want to say that EMS is doing well, that means people are doing bad. You know, we only know because people need help. So, you know, you hate to say, hey, we had a great year for us to be in Oklahoma. You know, but, you know, on the other hand, that's a fantasy that's never going to happen. So, you know, we do have to supply the services. That's why we're here. That's what we do. We have a great team in Goshen. You know, these guys are top-notch, have been top-notch. And, you know, the support that we get from not only the village, the town, and outside the town is phenomenal. You know, so, I also ride with the local ambulance corps 2 towns over, and it's just as George said. You know, every year we go before the board, we have to explain what we spend, how we spend it. Fortunately, we do not have the same demographics as Goshen does, but it's one of those things where it's the same type situation. So.
Well, theoretically, with the growing population, you should get more reimbursements every year.
Yeah, but again, you know, it's one of those things
No, I
where
understand.
good thing, bad thing.
Right.
You know, so.
People are healthy 1 year and sick the next.
You know, healthy today, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So. Yes, sir.
Is that a lump sum contract, or is that a percentage, or how does that contract work? Or is there a dead end, we're gonna spend no more than 400,000, or is it that we're gonna spend whatever to meet just the needs?
no, when you come before the board, wherever you are, Goshen or wherever place, you present the budget. And then that is the budget. If it's accepted by the town board, that's the budget for that year. I mean, conceivably, they could come back and say, we need more, but I haven't heard that. I mean, that really would not go over too well, I think, with town boards. This is what you need, this is what you said you needed, and you're living with that amount of money for that particular year.
So it would be a lump sum then, it sounds like?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think, Mary, as you had said earlier today, we're leaving the public hearing open. Our next meeting is the 23rd, and at that time, we should know, as of the 13th, meeting with that, we would hope that we would know from the village that, you know, what their pleasures are, what they're going to do, and then we can move forth. And what we do have a time frame that we really have to hit. That's March 1st. Everything has to be done. Has to be approved by the state, because this all has to go to the state as well. And March 1st is the taxable assessment date. And if you're not there and you don't have that in line to be able to tax the money, then you get no money for 2026. You have to wait till 2027 in order to get money. So we're under the gun a little bit. Yes, Neil.
Have you seen a proposed budget for this year coming up?
Well, I saw it when I was actually involved as president. Our treasurer did it, but I don't know whether you.
I'm assuming the town board would have seen a proposed budget.
Oh yeah, no, the town board back
Okay.
during the first presentation when Tom Waddell, the CPA came. Yeah, everybody got a copy of it.
Okay. Is that available to the public?
Must be. I'm sure you still have that, Mary?
I'll look.
I mean, I know there's copies at the ambulance store.
Yeah, I mean, we can make that available.
Okay, no, if Mary has it, that's fine, thank you.
Ernie,
Yes,
if you
please.
could email me a copy, it would make my life easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank
I
you.
need a motion to hold
Thank
it
you.
open to January 23rd.
Okay,
7:00.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you again.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the resignation of the police officer, Renee Cardona, effective December 30th, 2024. So we need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So, thank you, since Phil's not here,
Yeah, send him a
I
big
gotta.
letter,
You gonna type it up?
No, she's the same one.
Gotta be
She does
done.
names.
Now, the next item on the agenda is to designate Joe Betro.
No, we're gonna review the John
Oh, is
Deere,
it?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I got two different, I have the old agenda. Okay. The second one is approved the John Deere lease for the loader, which is specifically for Heritage. So Roderick Knoll, our highway superintendent, is here. And do you want to give us a rundown on it? Sure.
You wanna get brought up, Mike?
Okay, so during the 2023 and 24, we were a little short-handed, and we outsourced the plowing of Heritage. That went to TAM Enterprises, and the cost of those services for that year was $42,000.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yours off? Yours off?
Oh.
Yeah? All right, try it again, Rob.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So this year's season, we decided cost was high, we were gonna handle the plowing in-house. Since Heritage is of unique design and has some tightly turned islands in there, we realized we needed some equipment that we currently don't own. So at first, we were gonna rent a compact loader. That was gonna come at a cost of $4,200 a month for approximately 4 months, for a total of $16,800. That seemed a little high, and certainly did not build any equity. So we started into looking at the purchase of a compact loader, and we solicited a price from United Ag and Turf here in Goshen. The price was based on a national Sourcewell contract, which we are a member of Sourcewell, so we have the right to piggyback off that national contract for the pricing. The price of the John Deere 324P loader is $142,401.38. Benefit of the purchase in lieu of the rental is that the equipment can be used year-round for a variety of purposes. The loader can handle many tasks that we require, including the backup if our large loader went down in a snowstorm to load the trucks. In this case, I'm suggesting that we lease this unit, a municipal lease, as opposed to a direct purchase. This will help maintain our fund balances and cash flow. So the monthly cost of the lease, and this is a 60-month lease, and at the end of the lease period, you have the right to buy the unit for $1. So the monthly cost of the lease is $2,761 and change. That equals $33,139 a year. The total cost of the 5-year lease is $165,697. That is a 5-year interest total of $23,296. The interest per year is $4,659, and the interest per month is $388.27. And again, after 5 years, the loader can be purchased to own for $1.
And then there was a question this afternoon, can we pay it off early?
The answer to that is no, because it's a municipal lease, it's not an amortized loan.
I see.
So if you wanted to pay it off, yes, you could pay it off, but you'd pay the $165,000 instead of the $142,000.
I see, okay.
So,
Yeah, I think Joe was talking about that because you
Yeah.
possibly save some interest, right?
Yeah.
But I understand. So, questions?
Any, would you get any attachments for it, like forks or snow pusher?
The price includes a snow pusher and forks,
Okay,
heavy-duty forks.
yeah, good. And it comes with a bucket.
Yes.
And what do you think as far as delivery?
It's probably gonna be 3 weeks for them to get the unit.
Right. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I need a motion then to purchase this equipment because, you know, you can't do heritage with the equipment that we have, and this seems to make the most sense as far as in the long term.
Yeah, we've been fortunate, we haven't had a large snowstorm yet there.
Right.
So we've been able to do it mostly sanding.
Right. Okay, so somebody want to make a motion to purchase this? Thank you.
Yes,
Motion to
I think
purchase
we
them as
should,
recommended by,
Yeah, as recommended by.
yeah, as laid out by.
yeah. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Or actually, should that be roll call?
Aye. I'm sorry.
My name first.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is to designate Supervisor Betro to attend the annual business session of the Association of Towns of the State of New York on February 18th, 2025, to cast the vote of the town of Goshen pursuant to Article number 6 of Article 3 of the Constitution and bylaws of the association. So there's a sheet there that shows that. So we need a motion to make him the person who will be the designee.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion then? Call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is a request by the budget officer, Christine, to create a new capital fund. The fund is actually going to be named Fund Green Sand/Water, and to open a bank account to deposit those funds and pay expenses from. This is for the green sand improvements that we're doing out in Hamiltonian Park now. So Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Next is, Christine just came in. We just did this, the capital fund for the fund green sand.
Right.
So, I mean, it passed, so do
Okay.
you have any other comments or you want to know? Okay. Next thing is on the agenda is to review and approve the town board minutes of December 12th.
I can't.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, and I was absent.
Nothing.
So we'll hold those over.
I think we'll hold that one over, right, Mary?
The 21st or
The 12th.
the 12th? I was thinking the 27th.
Yes.
Well, none of them you could. You're not gonna be able to do anything,
Yeah.
because you won't have quorum, because you weren't on the day.
I know.
Well, January 2nd.
So, yeah, so the
Yeah,
20
we are.
27th will have to table.
Well,
Oh, no, because George wasn't here.
yeah, and,
Melissa can vote.
yeah, well, there's still only two
Okay.
people.
So we're gonna table the second as well?
Yeah, there's,
Okay.
Moving right on.
Now we have a outside vendor who manages our water and sewer districts called H2O. And they gave us a report. I'm just highlighting some of the important things there. First, Stonehenge. Stonehenge runs on one well, and we have dug another well number 3, still has to be approved by the Department of Health. Stonehenge, also TAM replaced the piping of the chemical injection line and the old line, because the old line was clogged. Scotchtown, the pressure tank project is underway. TAM has ordered the skid and the project has been approved by the Orange County Department of Health. An inspection was scheduled and done by the Department of Health on December 18th, 2024. Next is the Hamiltonian Park and Heritage Water and Sewer District. There's a new building underway for the pumps. The walls have been installed and plywood has hung throughout the building. And the status of the green sand filter for Heritage and Hamiltonian Park, Tim is working on that now. Arcadia Hills, the town should continue work on lining the sewer mains. We have infiltration problems with the water and the sewer lines. And so we have done quite a bit of work over the years, both in Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills, because they have sewer districts, but there's still work to be done. There's infiltration. More water is being sent to the village because they process that than actually is processed as far as the water is concerned. So that has to be maintained. Next is finance. So the first thing on the finance part is discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable check run for January 9th, 2025 in the amount of $564,028.50. Need a motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next is actually for information purposes. There's AP reports for December 12th. That's 4 pages of checks that we have sent out. And then there's another AP report for January 9th, which is a total of 3 pages. But again, that's for information purposes. And that's what I have as far as the agenda is concerned, except for public comment. And so that's what we're up to now. So is there anyone out there that would like to speak to the town board?
Sorry, Mary.
he's not sorry.
Good evening, Chris Haley, Town of Goshen resident. Welcome, Councilwoman Gallo back to the board.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing your thoughts on the topics that face our great town. One of those topics, I'll get right into it, it's been about 4 weeks since our last public town board meeting. That was December 12th. And at that meeting, we had a public hearing on local law 13. As a reminder, this is a law concerning short-term rentals. It was a lengthy meeting, and we had a few members of the public come up to speak. As a reminder, no one that spoke thought it was a good idea. Actually, the most popular idea in the room was that short-term rentals should be banned altogether in the town of Goshen. I got the feeling, as did many of us in attendance that night, that no one on the board thought that short-term rentals were a good fit for Goshen. At the time, Supervisor Betros said that he would have council looking into banning the practice altogether. Now, a week later, that was December 19th, local law 13 was on the agenda at the planning board meeting. Town engineer Sean Hoffman was at that meeting, and he let Chairman Burgess know that at the December 12th town board meeting, a week before, a ban was discussed, so the planning board opted to defer the conversation until advised by this board. Due to the holiday break, we didn't have a town board meeting at the end of December. However, the planning board did meet about a week ago. It was 1 week ago on January 2nd. At that meeting, Chairman Burgess had a drop-in item for the agenda, and we had a 2-hour conversation about local law 13. I was quite surprised to find out that the board was discussing a red line version of the law. That red line version is still not available on the town website. I think that catches us up to this point. And so, I would like to ask the board members in attendance if you would share your thoughts. What is the current mindset of allowing a nameless, faceless corporation to buy the property next door to your house and putting in a hotel? Basically what we're talking about. If any council member has a comment, I'd appreciate hearing it.
Can I chime in just to maybe shed a little light onto, and I know
Please.
we chatted the other day,
Yeah.
and I had a little more time since then to kind of
Awesome.
see what's going on. So the process when you introduce an introductory local law, so I think you called it local law number 13 of 24, it's introductory local law, and there are differences. So it's a proposed local law, that's the draft, right?
Thank
So
you for the clarification.
It's
Very
called
good.
introductory local law number 13 of 24 could become local law 2 of 25. Those are the same documents. We did that, I think, when we were dealing with maybe there was something last year, maybe Hughes, when it was around that time, we had 2 different laws going, trying to distinguish them. So I want to start off there. But procedurally, when you introduce the law, there's a draft. We get to ultimately to a public hearing stage where we got to, right? And generally, a law is more developed before you get to the public hearing stage, but this is particularly impactful on the public, and we want to hear everybody's opinion on it, more so than just saying, here's what the law is, and then, tweaking it at the end. So there was particularly to start that process, it needs to be referred to the planning board and to the county because of the type of law and the impact it has. So it went to the planning board to get commentary back. Particular where there was a lot of discussion on in this meeting was about the areas in which maybe this would take place if it was even allowed. And then towards the end, there was the issue raised of banning it altogether, and that there was these municipalities that had done that. So I want to back up again and say what I just said. This was referred to the planning board with the idea that we were developing a draft that was brought before everybody here on the public hearing, right? That draft is still floating around as I am continuing to try to pull in the wishes of what was expressed that day, which is just a flat ban. All right, now there's a lot of other variables between a flat ban and telling someone what they can do with their house and what they can't do. You can go back to the pillars of the Constitution and Commerce Clause and what you can and can't operate with your house. Now I understand when you phrase it as who wants a hotel next to them, yeah, and that's a good, I don't want to say it's a sales pitch, but it's a good framing of the issue when you don't want it, right? But my job isn't necessarily always about what's wanted, it's what's going to allow us to effectuate what we want legally, right? So draft goes to the planning board. Planning board's going to continue to process the draft that's sitting in front of them, all right? Because in the event that it can't just be a flat ban, we're still working off of, all right, how is it allowed but controllable, right? So if you take a look at, say, something like the Village of Goshen, or even the New York City one, it's not a flat ban. It's a control of what you can do. So yeah, all right, we can have Airbnbs, but you can only do it 3 times a year. Well, that's cost prohibitive for most homeowners, but it does effectuate the idea that, hey, maybe it's a weekend that's, I don't know, July 4th weekend. You want to have, you want to Airbnb your house. Maybe there's a need in the village. The construct of the village is different than the town, right? We would agree?
Sure.
Okay. So the planning board is going to continue to operate on the draft that they have until a new draft is proposed or put in front of them, which could happen. Very simply, if I see that there's a better fit and we could effectuate the wishes of the board, which may be an outright ban, that draft's going to be put in front of them. So they're going to redline as I'm continuing to do my work on it. So that, does that sort of, do you understand the process continues? And I know, and I'm not going to call on the member of the public, but we do have someone who's on the planning board, used to be our building inspector, who understands those things. And it's hard to freeze it in time. Okay, let me go redraft the whole thing and bring that back. But the impact and the feedback from the planning board is still vital to what I'm doing. So I understand it seemed like a curveball to you. They were directed to, they have 30 days to return feedback to us, the same way the county does. If they don't, in theory, you can move forward without their input, as if they're a member of the public, okay? So it's, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm almost done, but the county has the same thing going on, right? But if we put a new full draft out where material changes are made, not just ancillary things, like material changes, needs to go back in front of everybody and have the another bite at the apple. That's part one, so go ahead.
Thank you, and I'd like to say that Mr. Brady always does a great job of breaking it down so that the general public can understand it. I know that there are a lot of things that go on in the legal world that I'm just not privy to and I don't understand them. I am not an attorney. I am a member of the public, and although I understand that the process must continue, I would like the board to know from the public the way the process is continuing has added quite a bit of uncertainty from the way we see it from this side of the desk. That is to say, we did have this conversation. It did seem like the board at the time said, this isn't really a very good fit. And then to have this come up without the benefit of that wonderful explanation, it sounded much like, well, no, we're moving full steam ahead with this. And so, although I understand we're planning stages, baby steps, etc., I guess what I'm wondering for is it possible to break it down in simple terms? Is this board looking to move forward with allowing short-term rentals in the town of Goshen? Do we have that answer?
I'm going to advise the board not to answer that, because that question is, I'm not even sure that can be quantified what that means, because in what capacity, right? Outright, I mean, I haven't even advised them that's, I don't even know if that's doable. I know that you believe it is. So
well, the reason I believe it is because, from what I read, I wasn't there, but the town of North Hempstead and Long Island banned it outright. If you look on their website, it says right in their code that it's not allowed.
Right, but what I'm saying to you is that's one town in the entire state of New York, and there's about 75 laws that you can pull up, and not one of them matches that. So, I'm charged with my own independent analysis of it as a lawyer, not just going, well, Hempstead did it, so we can do it, right? So when you ask that question, and I respect the question, and I'm trying to tell the board, like, they're relying on what guidance I give them, whether they could even say yes or no to that initially. Now, just a dangerous question to answer, because you're looking at how the sausage is being made. You don't like it necessarily, but I'm telling you, if you piecemeal where you're looking at, it can be tricky, and I'm not saying you're not capable of understanding the law, but you identified it yourself. The procedure is confusing because you're seeing math go on that may not be used, right? So I just caution you on it. I think the goal was still, I've been charged with exploring a way to ban this altogether. It doesn't mean that that's the board's entire feeling. That was the glean, for sure, right?
Well, then if that's the case, Mr. Brady, I think you answered my question exactly. If you have been charged with the possibility of banning it altogether, then we are looking into the possibility of banning altogether. Not saying we can, not saying we will, but you've been charged in finding a way out.
Right, so the point is, there's two ships going, right? Because if that isn't gonna be there, I don't wanna be sitting here a month from now telling you, okay, let's start that machine back up, right? So it's open, the public hearing's open. The planning board doesn't have to do that, but if they don't, they risk the idea that come back and the public hearing closes and they don't have input.
So it sounds like I can tell my friends and my neighbors, relax, it's not a done deal, we're looking at all possibilities. The possibility of having it banned is still being looked into, we just don't have the answer yet.
I think that's a very articulate way of putting it, yes.
Very good. That's everything I had for tonight, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Tom Howell, 6 Boxwood. Can you get to more detail, if you have it, about how that schedule of the green sand installation is going in? Are there 2 green sand installations, one at Hamiltonian Park and the other one at the Heritage Pump Station, or is it just one? And are they started, or is there a schedule for when they're going to complete it?
Well, there isn't a schedule that I know of that with this completion date. We should turn this thing on.
Still not brought here, too.
He's not involved.
Oh, okay. I just figured he knew everything.
And I know, I don't know what's happening with mine.
It's at the bottom, push up.
Yeah, push it up.
No, the bottom.
Yeah, push it up.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. That's it, yeah.
Hey, George.
So I know Joe has been out there several times looking at it. I can't tell you exactly the status of it, but my understanding is there's one green sand place that's going to service all of Hamiltonian and Heritage.
All 6 will.
Just one thing there. And where they actually are with it, I don't know. I know it's been approved by the health department, so now it's a matter of them working on it and completing it.
Thanks.
So can I ask a question then? Are they gonna abandon all the wells in Heritage? Because I thought Steve Esposito and was working on getting a green sand filter for Heritage as well.
Oh, I see.
That's what I understand.
Oh, I see. Well,
That's
maybe,
yeah.
maybe then I misspoke.
See, that was kind of on the books a long time, and that was supposed to be done by the developer.
Right, I remember that happening,
So
yes,
that,
right.
and I think that he's gonna pay for most of it, but because one of the wells wasn't originally necessarily going in through the green sand filter of Heritage, so that we were gonna have to kick some money in to finish it off. I don't believe that's been started, but there have been some designs done on that.
Well, as of now, I believe there's only one that's being worked on.
Correct,
Right, one
that's
unit.
the one in
Right.
Hamiltonian Park.
Right.
Now, that will affect Heritage to some degree if the wells of Hamiltonian Park are being used to feed Heritage,
Right.
because they go both ways. Water comes from here, can come from Heritage to Ham Park, and Ham Park to Heritage.
Yeah. So we'll be able to, on the 23rd, we'll be able to give you a more exact update on what's happening with it. Anyone else? Please.
I'm Marie Hartman, Town of Goshen resident. How many questions for you? Questions, Mr. Brady?
Oh, no. I looked down, I didn't want to make eye contact.
So going back to the
Yeah.
B&B project, I know you're at
Which one?
At the B&B project.
Okay, sure.
So you're at a crossroads. If goes forward,
As in the initial draft,
if we decide to approve it and we do it, and we now sign off and say to people, the town has approved, we are endorsing you to have a B&B.
I see, that's why I didn't, that's why the question's a little
I
bit.
just want to
Sorry,
know,
sorry.
God forbid,
Mm.
during a drunken party, some 2-year-old falls in a pool and dies. How much liability does the town have? Because we have now endorsed and we've said that we've reviewed it.
Well,
Does
that's,
that
all
leave
right,
us open
so,
to a lot of liability?
so there, if you start with, there's still a permit process, right? So when you say we've endorsed it, you could, the town of Goshen could allow short-term rentals and never have a short-term rental, okay? It's the same thing as a B&B. or take any other commercial entity that is authorized by the town of Goshen that requires a permit. So there's still the restraint of the dais up here, the elected officials. Because again, the wave could change at some point. Maybe there's a different area of town of Goshen that Airbnbs are welcome. But permit process is still there, discretionary. In that permit process, what was being developed in the sections about the permit application was the normal things you would need: insurance and liability certificates. The same way when like Wagon Wheel has their event down, I think it's Wagon Wheel, maybe I'm calling them something else, but down Sarah Wells, they have a one-day event. They got to submit a certificate of insurance and things of that nature that we review to make sure that if something happens in some capacity or some event at the park, that they're covered that way. So the idea would be no, there would be no liability just because we're authorizing someone to use an entity in a commercial context.
So right now, we have B&Bs operating, not B&Bs, Airbnbs operating right now in Goshen.
Uh-huh.
So what is the advantage for us to approve them? What do
Well,
we get out of this?
It's some of it has to do with the identification process of identifying them and then being able to enforce the idea that these things are existing in our community. The process of putting in a permit process. I think it's fair to say that the winds change over time with the community feelings. So it's putting in how the process would work if it was ever implemented, but it gives the board the option of whether that permit would go through. I mean, it's the same. Again,
Is it permit fee? Is that what we're making?
Say again?
The only advantage then to us would be the permit fee?
No, the advantage is one way or another. There's got to be right now. There's no enforceability. I'm of the belief that if something's not identified, or we all accept the idea, and I'll go extreme, the idea that murder is not allowed, right?
Right.
Well, take for granted that's still a law, right? It's identified. Here's what happens when you do it or when you violate it, right? So identify it, lay out the consequences, lay out the enforcement path. So I'm of the belief that at the very least, we've got to identify what a short-term rental is. And then if you're operating a short-term rental illegally, here's what happens. That's not on our books right now. So, if you have an expectation, take a child, don't do this. Well, if you don't tell a child don't do something and they do it and then you expect them to understand the consequences that you're delivering, doesn't make much sense, right? So identify it and then tell them you can't do it, and then here's what happens if you do it.
But if we don't permit them, can't we just have a police force patrol it as a,
How's that working out?
I don't know, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, that's the reason it's here, right? I mean, that's what I believe.
I don't know if that's.
I believe it's challenging for the police, all right? And it becomes, the vigilante nature of someone's having a party, that's an Airbnb, is a problem. Like, I understand my job is I do look in a slippery slope world, because of that, because that's the way it's ingrained in your brain as a lawyer. And I'm not that other people don't think that way. But I think if we start getting into someone's having a party back-to-back weekends, it must be an Airbnb. Maybe they're popular. Maybe this is a social thing. Maybe there's a birthday one weekend and it happens to be Father's Day the next weekend. I know these are extremes, but that's how you draw out, the playing out a law and how to try to anticipate things that you don't know until they come up. So this law will be tweaked if it goes in kind of in the construct that's been presented, as opposed to just can't do it, here's what happens, and that's the law, 3 pages or 3 lines like Chris suggests. And I wish that was possible to write laws like that, although it would be, and anybody would write them, right? But I think we've got to understand that there's a little more to it than just saying you can't do it.
And shouldn't we be more prepared, like with this police force and the code
Well,
issuer?
I mean,
Do we have, once you settle this up, do you have enough to enforce it? Do you have people that are actually gonna go out?
Well, I mean, I don't have the facts and figures, but it's not like the wildfires in California. There's like a party on every corner here. Like, I mean, I understand we have someone, if your house has a party next to it every week, yeah, it feels like that's going on and it's right next to you. And I can appreciate that. But we gotta be also understanding that it's not like there's an Airbnb on every corner in the town of Goshen. So when you say enforcing it, part of the enforceability is people need to know that it's being enforced. So you force a couple, and then it should slow down the path. The presumption that if you list it on there, that alone, if you list it on Airbnb or Verbo or the like, that alone exposes you to, you don't have a permit, because we haven't handed out any permits. It's a presumption. You're listing it, and we don't have any permits out, you're in violation. That will spread quickly. You know, there's a lot of people, and I think Chris, I think was your identification of it, but there's a lot of people, most Airbnb owners don't own in their community for the obvious reasons. Like, and there isn't an affinity to the community. It's to make money, right? It isn't like, hey, this is a beautiful house, let's let everybody enjoy it in the community, you know?
Right.
So, those people tend to own multiple places too. It's a you know, it's a business, literally. So I don't know, but it's new. It's really new. Like, that's why it's every town's got a different version.
Warwick just approved it in a certain amount of fund, but they said they did it because they figured out a way to have enough code enforcers.
Well, I mean, I don't know what they're different town. I mean, we always get compared to Warwick, but the contours of our community. I mean, there's homes out there that, you know, that are much wider apart than here.
Yeah.
And even with the town, you know, and again, you look at the village has got, they want some commerce in there. You know, it's not crazy to have, you know, a small apartment be rented for an Airbnb, and it's not necessarily a party thing. It's a place to lay your head when you come from Legoland or something,
And
right?
since we don't have access to the this red line thing, I sat in meeting for 2 hours listening about it. Nobody even made me a copy, but that I'm getting over.
That's your choice.
Are the tents
I'm
and
not
the
gonna
platform
sympathize
tents,
with
are they
that.
still in the law, or have you taken those out?
Say again?
The beginning, it said you could have tents, platform tents, things
I-
like that.
I'm not-
Are they in or out?
Candidly, I'm not, that's their recommendations to me the same way Chris sent his to me. And it's ultimately it's my bill to put in front of this group with Mr. Rometta because he does the code enforcement. He's got a hand in it, but it's my name on it to the board and their vote on it.
So as it stands now, though, do you have tents and tent platforms in it?
There's a red line draft
So
that.
my next door neighbor can still put up tents on the front lawn next to my house, if this keeps moving along.
Well,
and you
I
don't
mean,
change
that's
it.
why I don't want you, you're like, it's like, you know, the first taste of your soup, it's got too much salt in it, right? And then you're like judging it right there, as that's gonna be too salty a meal, like, you still have time to adjust this.
To me, it's a big difference between buildings and tents, so that's
Right,
why I'm
but
concerned.
the thing is, there's no law right now, so you'll have the period to comment on that if that still comes through.
But you can't tell me if it's in your red line.
I think
Has
that
someone struck it out, or is
you're
it
picking
still
out
in?
one thing.
Because it's important.
It's
That's why.
and I'm not discounting the importance of it.
Kind of feels like it.
No, I'm discounting the idea that you want me to answer about a thing over here when I'm being charged with also searching about banning it all together. So if we go into whether the tents are in, well, why are the tents in? Then we want to go down that whole
I won't
path.
ask you why they're in, I just want to know at this point in time, are they in the law, the proposed law that may go down one fork A, or you might ban it in fork B?
I believe that the planning board changed some of the terminology about what a tent is and what it isn't, and what temporary structures would be. Like, you know, you have a code that already identifies those, so we're just trying to make sure that we match them up, so we don't have a Frankenstein code where I'm calling something this, and in the part of code over here it's this, and now we have a conflict, right? And that's what happens when you put in a complete, I mean, I don't know what time in recent time, maybe Legoland, or you're talking about changing zones, that 11-page law has gone in where it's its own fresh spot, right? So everything's got to match up. It sounds like it should be easier, and maybe it should be easier, but it's challenging with that stuff. So the planning board is the one identifying what kind of structures they would want, because that's what would happen if you came in before them. They're the ones that are supposed to keep that contours and things of that nature.
Yeah, I sat in that meeting. for
Yeah,
2
well, I'm
hours.
sorry
And they
for
couldn't
your.
say anything, and they didn't address it.
Because to me, like, I don't know, like, it would come back with their recommendations, and then we would discuss that here. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to comment there, but that's a part of the process of editing the draft, and then we come back to this public hearing. It's not a public hearing in the planning board. it's just a discussion because they're obligated to give me feedback, or if they don't, that's feedback in its own right.
Will you put out this proposed red letter thing to the public before we go into a public hearing?
Yeah, yeah. The goal would be to incorporate the changes and I'd be able to identify where the changes were made, not just hand you back a copy. Here's the new draft. Figure it out. I mean, it's not like a turnkey thing because I've also spent all the time, 2 months building that up to right at the end of the meeting getting a different direction, right? And I mean, those who were here present for that, and maybe that's a game changer and a save, but it took me off that, and that's put me over here.
Gotcha.
So I'm not punting on the answer. The tents are still in right now. Okay.
Okay,
All
that's
right, there you go. But I just don't want you. I know it's important to you. I know it's important to you. I will. So.
Very circular kind of answer.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what you. Man, I like it when but if I was your attorney, you would love that answer.
It's a new year. I was hoping.
That was pretty good.
That's
pretty good. I noticed you moved closer to the mic. I knew you were going to speak tonight.
I hate that. You know,
I
if
know
I
it.
get up, I hate it.
Any other
Although you
public?
did use the skinny filter right when I got
Any
up.
other- All right. Neil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Neil Halloran.
I'm sorry, who?
Jose. No, I'm well aware that, and actually, Roy, I think you did a good explanation before and good advice to the board not to make a comment because
Thank you.
there certainly are at least two versions of the law that I've seen. It's the original board version, which is I think the only one that the town board has.
Correct, and rightfully so. To be honest.
I'm not
Yeah.
arguing they shouldn't. Okay?
No,
I agree that that's the only one that you have presented, and this other red line version does not belong to you. And actually, I think, as Rory said, I think it came from the planning board's attorney for the planning board to look at and say,
Yeah.
is this how you wanted to go forward and make your recommendations? So I have seen both copies at the planning board level, and in fact, the ERB has reviewed both of them and spent a good bit of time last night looking at the second version that the planning board had done. So I had the red line version, or in case Mary printed it, it was the blue line
Stop
version.
hitting the podium with your hands, please.
Yes.
It's like Joe with the clicky pen. You gotta take the-
Okay, so I do understand that. On the question of pools, I think that Lee Burgess had some comment on that because he's from the Department of Health. And I believe that if people are gonna have pools in their backyards, and are gonna be part of this, it will become a public pool. And he said almost no private pools are gonna meet the standards that are required for a public pool. So probably private pools in the backyard will not be allowed to be leased out or rented out to people unless they get totally changed. And in fact, the Department of Health may in fact require them to fill the pools in if they're gonna rent out otherwise. That is not a definitive answer, but it was a conversation at the planning board level, or at the planning board level. And I think this law is obviously still incomplete, since they had a lot of comments, and you have to come back and you're gonna end up saying, all right, let's include this or let's not include that. I think that's gonna happen. I think ultimately also we're gonna have seeker that's gonna have to be completed for the final version, because the two versions are significantly different, and we'll see what happens there. I think it's still an ongoing process. I don't think it's going to be resolved anytime soon. But thank you very much.
Yeah, Neil, thank you for explaining that. There's Airbnbs for pools, which is kind of what you're dipping your toe in.
That was from Lee Burgess.
Yeah, that's another whole nother.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank